Hey, Jasen Rice here with LotParty. And again, I'm excited to have Ricky Walter here, Used Car Ricky. What we're going to do, over the last few weeks, we've been dipping into some of the internet process. As we tweak our inventory, as we get more efficient with our inventory, we're driving more leads. Now what? We might not be getting the sales that we expected because our internet processes are falling apart. So a few episodes ago, I talked about the basic internet departments. The next episode, I talk about a deeper dive with Three Birds Marketing and what we could do to drive more traffic, not with just new leads, but even our current clientele base. Then I dug into the front and back end of the internet processes and the difference between sold and delivered and why that's important to track. Now I want to talk to Ricky because he just started over at a store to get the internet department going. I've been in those shoes, but I want to take it from an expert that's in the trenches right now to what areas do we focus on? How can we, what certain areas can we start pushing to see improvements, and then where do we go next? So without further ado, Ricky, if you can introduce yourself to the crowd here, maybe the two people that watch it, but introduce yourself, maybe your background, how things are going.
Well, thanks for having me on first. And, my name is Ricky Walter. I'm at Mercedes-Benz of Georgetown currently. I've been in the car business for about 12 years, and I started out in sales, went to an internet department. I've worked in mostly import stores, Nissan, Honda, and Toyota. Been all the way up the food chain to sales manager, finance manager, and back down. So, I've had a good run. And a few years ago, I started doing some consulting, and wasn't really planning on getting back into the car business in retail. But I landed at a store that was fantastic. The people were amazing, and I made the jump and just decided to keep working with people. So. Mostly my focus now is looking at internet departments and see what we can change and do better and focus on so that we get a higher ROI on the leads that are coming in, and lower the cost per sale. So.
Okay. So again, I started out when you first go into, and I know you've done in consulting and now at the store, if you're just to kind of going blindly into a store that needed some internet help, where do you start? Their website, their CRM, both. But what do you think is the key, the initial, if anybody's struggling right now and feel like they need to turn things around, where would you attack?
My philosophy about the internet and internet departments is about information and communication. So when I really look at the store's doing and not doing, I really look at mapping. Mapping from the DMS all the way up through the process into the showroom and back down again. So, the internet to me is information that is delivered relevant to the user at the speed of light. And I approach the internet department the same way. So I want to make sure that the DMS is talking to the website, and the website is sending the correct information and being syndicated to all the third-party vendor sites.
Okay.
And then I look at how the CRM is interacting with those as well, in terms of parsing leads, in terms of how the CRM communicates with the consumer, and how that information gets transported and gets logged and makes a record of it, so that I can see what my engagement is and what my conversion is over a longer period of time.
Okay. So kind of building that virtual dealership from the ground up, that's the foundation of your virtual dealership, is just making sure all the pipes are connected and there's no leaks, right? So
absolutely.
So let's just say that's all lined up. Now where do you go? What do you attack on that from there?
From the mapping standpoint?
Yeah, let's just say everything's running smoothly. Now, maybe they don't feel like they're getting enough traffic or they're closing enough deals or both. Again, is it, a process? Is it website? Is it vendors? Lead providers? What's the next round of attack, you think?
Yeah, so, you can't really get an ROI until you have a good process in place. And based on that process, you'll know, how much you should be converting, how long the life cycle is for each lead from different vendors. And so once I've mapped it all out and I've got it all working the way I want it to, and all the information is flowing to the right places, what I like to do is then start working on internet processes with the sales team and really get them in tune with how the lead comes in, what we're supposed to do, how we're going to do it, how we're going to communicate with customers, what kind of information we're going to give them. And the reason I do that is because if I start pumping up the SEM and the PPC and SEO and all that other stuff, I'm going to get a bunch of leads that I'm not going to be able to reply to correctly, which is going to cost me money.
Yeah.
So I start with the mapping from the DMS up through the process. Then I move to the training aspect of it, of how we're going to manage the information as it comes in and as it's going out. Once I get that in place, which, you got to have the right people to do that. Once I get that in place, then I'll start looking at what I want to do with my third-party vendors, what I want to do with my syndication, what I want to do with my pricing, what I want to do with my PPC and SEM, display ads, all the other stuff. That stuff tends to come last because until I have the first two, I'm really spending a lot of money, doing a lot of things, and then getting frustrated at why I don't see results. And the biggest reason that most people don't see results is because either the mapping is incorrect or the process isn't developed to a point where you can really gauge the ROI on what you're spending.
Yeah, and that's why I covered in that first episode just the foundation, because so many dealers, we got to get on Facebook, we got to get on social media, we got to get this done, and they don't even have the foundation built yet of just the process, because and I think that's where the big struggle is a lot, that the new shiny tool or the new shiny marketing angle we go after without having that solid foundation. Now, I'm going to bring this up, and this interview isn't about me, but I want to talk about, maybe it brings in a debate. What do you prefer as far as salespeople handling leads, BDC, internet people? My choice is, now I understand everybody on your showroom floor should be internet savvy and have the ability to handle internet leads. But the way I talk to stores is, I think let's say you have 10 salespeople, you've got 2 or 3 that you really can trust that answer the phone correctly. You probably got 3 or 4 that have great product knowledge. You have another 3 or 4 that maybe can handle appraisals a lot better. But you might have 3 or 4 that you can only handle email communications or sit behind a computer most of the day making phone calls over and over. And so to spread it all out becomes a juggling act. I don't like that. I like it so much to have, and this is the way I was raised in the car business, handling leads, is we get the lead, we call, we email, schedule appointment, we sell the car. My preference even further would have them handle an F&I and go on the whole gamut. But, and maybe at some point in time my whole floor is at that ability. But if not, I'm going to have 3, 4, whatever amount of leads. If I figure 80 to 120, depending on your processes, leads, and have them call an email, schedule an appointment, get it in. Now, most guys will say less than 100, but that's a different conversation. But what do you feel like should be done at a store? Who should handle it? What's the level of amount of leads?
I think that if you have a good process and you have the right people handling it, I don't know if you're going to see a big difference in the return on investment. Okay. I've seen great BDC departments. I've seen great internet departments. I've seen great sales floors that handle the lead from the time it comes in all the way through to finance and delivery. I've seen that. Matter of fact, the number one Honda store in this market here is doing exactly that. Yeah. It's First Texas Honda right down the road, and they have an amazing process. They have a great word track system that they use. They have great salespeople that are following their processes. And so I don't know if one is better than the other. I've seen them all work. Yep. For me personally, I think that, I've got a good process, and as long as I'm training on that process and developing the people, and I'm managing the process and developing the people, I can always count on a couple of things, which is I'll know at the end of the month. Actually, I'll know at the beginning of the month how many sales I'll have based on how many tasks I'm set up for the month, how many salespeople I have, how productive are they. When I crunch all those, I run numbers all day long. So when I crunch those numbers, I can project with a pretty good degree of accuracy of what my return is going to be. And then, I can start adding little things to the mix, like, add another vendor or add a PPC campaign or add a social campaign. And I'll be able to tell if those things are working because I've got my process in place, I've got my people in place, and they know what to do when the lead comes in. So
right now at your store, is everybody handling internet leads?
No, they're not. Okay. And that was only because that's how it was set up when I got here.
Okay.
Now, I think my goal would be to have an internet showroom floor where everybody can handle a lead and everybody knows how to, follow that process. As we have it right now, it is split up between an internet department and a sales floor department, and it's working for the time being. But I've only been here a month, so we'll see how it goes from there.
Now, how many leads does each internet person handle? What do you think that cap is?
I think each internet person can effectively. Now, here's the thing: effectively and productively follow up with a lead with intention.
Yep.
I think that an average of about 75 to 100, it starts to kind of cap out at about 100 leads a month. You're going to have the non-responsive customers. You're going to have the ones that are really engaged. You're going to have the ones that are kind of back and forth. And so as a whole, I'm really I try to keep it in that sweet spot of 75 to 100.
Yeah. And I mentioned 120 because I'm going back to, and I got to defend myself, so a lot of people would think I'm sounding stupid. I go into a lot of automation. I over 8 years running I've had time tested internet templates that I seem like work effectively. So I know at day 7 I want to send this email, which is short personal email. Those templates are great, and the systems can plug in the name and the car and everything like that. And I a lot of times will just have that automatically sent out, 7-day, 10-day, 14, those type of emails just going out to allow my person to hit the phones harder. I'd rather them pound the phones than pull up a lead, grab a template, hit send. Pull up a lead, grab it. Now, a perfect world, I want them to grind and like you said, work the lead effectively, type out the emails more exactly where the customer is. But if you get a good process in place, a internet person should be plugging in those type of emails in between the automations. And that's where I think if you do a little bit of automation, you can push on a good person up a little bit higher. Do you like automation? Do you run from it? Do you like more of that personal touch on everything? Or is there a little bit of mixture at your store?
There's a lot of brain damage when it comes to internet processes and following up with 120 customers or 100 customers or 75 customers a month where 50% of them are non-responsive. There's a lot of brain damage there, and my job is to make the most efficient use of their time, and the best way that I've found to do that was to set up lifecycle marketing workflows where if the customer is engaged, we have a certain workflow that we follow. If the customer is not engaged, if they're non-responsive, we have a different workflow.
Sure. And
one is designed to create an appointment and get them to the store. One is designed to get them to re-engage with the store once they've already sent in a request for information on a vehicle, whether it's price or options or whatever. So I have a couple of different life cycles that I use for these guys, and it really does a lot of the heavy lifting for them.
Yep.
So that they don't have to spend a lot of time sending 100 emails to 50 of last month's customers that never replied, 50 of this month's customers that have never replied, and it just really takes a lot of the brain damage out of their day, and it helps them it helps them feel more like the work that they are doing is there's value there because they see that return on investment when they're engaged with other customers and not spending their entire day writing emails.
Well, one of the things I'm surprised with that the dealers that I run into, but again, most of them are struggling dealers that need help on it, is they typically have the CRM process set up, and that's mostly it, other than sold and floor follow-up processes, and they don't have a trade-in process, a credit app process, a no phone process. I mean, how many different, other than, again, engaged or not engaged type processes, I mean, do you guys have the trades, F&I, things like that? And who handles that? Does that load get handled? We used to get a lot of subprimes. My internet people handle it, but we got so many, we end up having to give it to the subprime department because we just can't handle it. Do you guys do any kind of movements like that on those type of leads?
We do. We have an acronym that we use here, and it's ACES, and it stands for Autonomous, Communication, Engagement, and Salesmanship. Right. So they use that format when they're engaging with a customer or not engaging with the customer to be able to drive the customer to the store. We do have a trade-in process. We do have a credit app process. We do have a sold going into F&I process that we use.
Okay.
We have a be-back process. If a customer comes to the store and we work a deal, but for whatever reason they leave and are leaving in their vehicle and not ours, we have about 5 days to re-engage them and figure out where did we miss the boat, or did we miss the boat, or were their expectations not met somewhere along the line. So we have that workflow, which is a 5-day process. And then I have another final process, which is the customer said, we're out, we appreciate your business, or we appreciate the time that you spent with us, whatever. And the salesperson actually no-sales the lead. I have another workflow that I personally use to re-engage the customers, and it's basically an email that says, hey, where did we fail? At some point we missed something and we failed to deliver a great car buying experience. And the reason I know that is because hang on just a second.
Love it. See, live working deals.
Hang on.
Yep.
Come on in. Oh, it's locked. Hang on.
Yeah. See, this is what's cool about the show. He's in the trenches working deals right now. So a couple things that I want to bring up while he's on hold here is, I want to talk about social and what they do there. And I also, want to talk about video and do they incorporate any of that when he comes back? Because I think, those are other things that dealers are starting to, and obviously a lot of them have done it for a while, but starting to dip their toes in, and there's a lot of debate on should we allow our salespeople to promote socially and what do they put out there on their social, or do they have access just to the dealer social? And so, those I think are hot topics for dealers. So, when he gets back, we want to dig into those things. But keep in mind, like he's talking there about processes, I think it's real important to make sure, you do have a trade-in process. Any type of lead you have come in that might be different, trade-in process, finance apps, to maybe even no phones. I'm big on having a no phone process, again, where I set up an email schedule, and it's the same follow-up process that we might have for any other lead, but that process guts out the calls, so the only thing left is emails. And if you automate those, again, because once you send them an in-stock email and the phone's disconnected or don't have a phone number, you're just going to try to email and follow up. So I'm big on just kind of good email templates that get pushed out to the customer for 60, 90 days. And then that allows that, and then we do tasks in between there to have the spot check every 3, 5, 7 days to spot check on the lead and maybe do a custom email about new incentives or something, or the car sold, here's something similar. But, and not a set it, forget it, but we push it over there and it's not dragging down all these tasks in their organizer to make these calls that they just have to clear out anyways. So that's another process that I find that a lot of dealers don't take advantage of, is set up these processes and like no phone, and let the system email them and don't assign phone calls to it. So Ricky, you're back working that deal? All right, so one of the things I want to talk about is, let's talk about video. Do you guys implement any kind of video? Do you guys do YouTube? Do you do any kind of those software that they introduce themselves and send it to the customer, co-video and things like that? Do you guys implement video at your store? I think you're muted. You're muted. Can we hear you? Did I lose you? Oh, there you are. You're back. All right. You're back.
You there?
Yep. You heard the question though, right?
Yes. Okay. So at this point, I've spent the last 30 days just getting to, the training portion.
Sure.
Did the mapping. Now we're working on process. At some point, I really am a fan of the introduction videos. I'm a fan of video in general. I don't know if anybody knows that, but I'm a pretty big fan of video. I think it really translates a lot of things that an email or a phone call can't.
Yeah.
And so at some point we will be implementing that. I just got them. They didn't think that it was coach. They just didn't send text messages. And I told them, look, text messaging is by far the highest way to convert a customer, because in today's world we are 140 character society and we're trying to get stuff done. Not everybody has the time to, especially with younger customers. If it's a C-class, an entry-level vehicle, and it's a younger person, and you can tell by talking to them on the phone, or you can tell by where they live, or what their occupation is. Send them a text message, because it's definitely a higher converting medium.
Yeah.
And if they don't want you to send a text message, they'll tell you.
Now, so we want a little bit 20 minutes recording on my camera, but we're going to extend this out. I think we're having fun. We can go as long as you want to go. But all right, so texting, that's awesome. Does the text integrate with your CRM? Because there's some that do, some that don't. Is it integrating with your CRM so you can see that follow-up within there, or is it just something that they're able to do outside of it and you just kind of assume
it doesn't? But we found a way to work around it.
Okay.
So the CRM that we're using won't do it, but if we use an iPad, because they have a mobile version of the CRM,
it does.
We figured out a little workaround so that it would. So it worked out pretty good, and actually one of the team members is the one that figured it out, so I can't take credit. I'd love to take credit for it, but I can't. So good job, Jennifer.
Yeah, and that's the that's the cool part about car people. They usually figure out around that problem, any of those problems.
So they'll figure it out, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to bring up, social. Okay. How big are you guys socially as a dealership? And then another big debate is, do you let your staff be social and promote on their personal pages and mix business with pleasure type thing? Because there's a lot of that, legal stuff and risks that dealers take on that. Where do you guys stand with that so far with the dealership?
Me personally, I think that if someone is seriously interested in promoting themselves and creating a brand, I believe in it 100%. I believe that it can only help the store, and it can only help increase the number of deals that you can get, as well as the brand loyalty to the salesperson and the store.
Yeah.
There's do I allow salespeople to post things on the Facebook page of the store? No. Yeah. That is actually monitored very closely by the people that are in charge of managing that information. And in a corporate setting like this, like where I am, it's very controlled, and for a good reason. I mean, you certainly wouldn't want a disgruntled employee to go off and start, posting just crazy stuff. And I've seen it happen. I've seen some really bad things happen over the last 10 years that social has really grown. Some GMs don't even know that there's somebody else posting on their page, because they don't know how to turn off the filter. Things like that.
Or they're liking things and didn't know that it's showing up underneath the dealership.
What's that?
Or they're liking things and not knowing that it's showing up on, or they're sharing things not knowing that they're logged into the dealership's and it's sharing it on theirs instead of the personal.
I've seen that happen too. So yeah.
Yeah. So anything that we've covered or haven't covered that you think is real important if a dealership's kind of struggling right now with internet? What other areas you think would be important to cover that I might not have brought up?
The biggest problem that I see with internet departments is a lack of process and a lack of leadership. Mm-hmm. You have to have a process, and you have to have leadership that believes in that process, because salespeople will only believe in a process as much as you do, and as much as you believe that it can impact sales. Yeah. And so the biggest problem I find is that internet departments are just kind of doing the same thing that they do on the floor, but via email. Yeah. And that's a huge disservice to the end user, the dealership, the salespeople that are using that type of process. But when you have good leadership and you have a good process, the best part about that is that I can take just about anyone who has never sold cars, teach them a great process, teach them how to use it, and then develop them into salespeople along the way. Yeah. And to me, that's probably the biggest hurdle for internet departments, is that they're basically just taking their showroom process and they're sending it out via email. Yeah. When can you be at the store? Yeah. I'd love to give you a price, but I'd love to have you here at the store. Or, I don't know what your trade looks like, so you need to bring it here. I mean,
best prices
in a world of, what's that?
I said the best price is when you get in the door here, right? Those kind of things.
Yeah. I just, it's almost offensive. It's just an antiquated system, and so I think the biggest thing that people can do is find a great process, find a good leader to manage that process, and to have some confidence, so that when you have somebody who's questioning it, you have the ability to lead them in the right direction.
Yeah. And I even think just having a good process, like you said, you can get a good salesperson and then start training them and tweaking them and getting them better at what they're doing. Same with process. Just get something there. Get something and manager and monitor, and then let it grow, and then start tweaking it and moving it the way the customers are reacting to it. And you can do the same for both. They got to look at that process as a salesperson that matures and that gets better, and then we can start different angles and use it in different ways. But a lot of them just kind of keep them the same old and don't even change anything within it, other than, well, let's cancel that provider and try a new provider and see if our numbers make a difference.
Yeah. It just blows me away. It's like, let's look at our ROI, and we sold 2 cars on this vendor, and we made $8,000. We sold 5 cars on this vendor, and we didn't sell any on this one. But the 5 cars that we sold, we only made $500. So let's cancel that vendor and use the one that we made $8,000 on. I mean, it's there's no rhyme or reason to it, but it makes sense to them.
All right, so maybe at this store you're not at this point yet because you're a month in. I tend to like to give lead providers and current stuff 2 or 3 months of trackable good data before I pull the trigger on anything. But if you had let's just say a $10,000 budget, $15,000 budget on your internet department, where would you spend a bulk of that money? Where would your first dollars go to, and what percent? Let's say you got $10,000. What percentage would go SEO, SEM, versus third-party lead providers versus classified sites like Auto Trader, Cars. What kind of budget do you tend to angle, and where do you like the majority of it going to?
The sweet spot for me has been 80-20. 80% PPC and SEM retargeting, and 20% on third-party lead. Mm-hmm. I believe in driving traffic to my website and not to other people's websites, because I can retarget them, which raises the value of my website, not theirs. Yeah. So I do think that there is a place for a third-party vendor, depending on who it is and what my market looks like. However, I believe in homegrown customers who are loyal to me and the brand, and I think if I own them up front instead of later down the road, I'll have a lower cost per sale, lower cost per lead, a better ROI, I'll have better engagement, I'll have all the things that I think I'm getting with all these other vendors. Plus, they won't get retargeted on their site, on somebody else's site to somebody else's page. And I can control it. Okay,
so then let's back up there when we talk about third party, because some stores and some of these providers consider themselves a classified and not a third party, lead aggregator, or more of a classified. And I'm talking about like an Auto Trader and Cars.com. I know they consider themselves, and some stores consider them. Well, that's classified. That's more like store advertising. Third parties like Auto by Tel and TrueCar. What do you differentiate the two? When you said 80 and 20, does 20% including like the auto listing sites versus a TrueCar or an Auto by Tels or things like that?
I think a third-party lead is a third-party lead is a third-party lead. To me, it doesn't, if I'm not driving them to my site and I'm driving them to somewhere else, I lose control over the content, number one, and the conversion, number two. So to me, whether it's a lead provider or a listing, or all I'm doing is promoting their website and not promoting mine. So every dollar that I spend promoting their website, I could be using to promote mine, and I could actually own the information and own the data and retarget them back to my site. Yeah. Which just makes the most economic sense to me. And so if it were up to me, and if I could make the decision, I would crack every lead provider out there and just spend the money on social PPC and stuff that I can control and that I own, versus listing sites or third-party lead providers. But it's not up to me. So I deal with the leeway that I've been given, and it seems to be working. Yeah.
So a little bit of a recap, where you would start is kind of the plumbing. You want to make sure all the DMSs, CRMs, websites are feeding and the funneling accurately. You want to make sure then you have a good process in place. And regardless of, again, like you said, there's successful BDCs, internet only, salespeople, but figure out that core and then either, manage it and then start tweaking it the way, your customers or the department's reacting. When we talk about video, you're supportive and want to do it. You're just at a younger stage right now at the turnaround process that you don't implement it yet, and that's a good lesson to learn. Because again, if you're struggling, don't just be jumping out there at everything that's out there available to you. Start fine-tuning your processes and your plumbing, and then make sure, and then go from there. Socially, you're okay. Don't let people into your dealership's Facebook. Let them promote themselves internally with some monitoring and control. And let them, be able to drive business. I think you're successful at that. Mike Davenport, a guy like that, successful at that, and that obviously benefits the dealership. So you wouldn't want to, I think, handicap those type of people out there. And then 80-20 when it comes to budget. SEO, SEM, driving yourself, 20% third party. Again, as we wrap up here, is there one tip you give a dealer? Just say, hey, if you're going to do anything of all this stuff, be doing this.
I would say find a good process and find a good leader that can manage that process and develop your people. That would be the core of it.
All right, so to wrap it up, how'd you get Used Car Ricky as your nickname?
What's that?
How'd you get Used Car Ricky as your nickname, as your handle?
Okay, so there, it's funny. I was actually listening to the radio, and there is in Austin where I live. There was a guy that was pretty famous on the radio. His name was Softball Ricky. And I was trying to come up with something that kind of rolled off the tongue. And I was selling used cars at the time. And, just Used Car Ricky sounded like something that would be fun to say. And there was always, this the car guy or this your used car guy, and I needed something that really had something that really stuck. And when I said it out loud, Used Car Ricky just stuck, and then it just kind of grew from there. And honestly, to be honest with you, Used Car Ricky started out as a way to connect with customers, but it wasn't as good as it did connecting with industry people.
Sure.
I had more industry people connect with me when they saw videos of stuff that I'd done, and it went the opposite way of what I thought it was going to do. So it is what it is.
I mean, I love the video, that song you did. What's the name of that video, or if anybody wanted to find that video or the song?
Ride Dirty Twitter song.
Yeah, that's an awesome song.
Yeah.
So what's your handles out there if people want to find you on Twitter, Facebook, all that?
On Twitter, on everything. Everything is Used Car Ricky. It's, just like it sounds, Used Car Ricky. And, I mean, you Google it and you'll find everything I've ever done, which may be a detriment to me. I don't know.
And then you got the Automotive Revolution or Welcome to Revolution. I like those videos. Those are real well put together graphically and everything, too. Those are cool videos. But again, I appreciate your time. Check out Ricky. Thanks for watching this episode of LotParty. Hope you got a lot of information. It was a long show, but man, we dumped a lot at you. Ricky did an awesome job, give you some information to help you get your internet department turned around. See you next episode. Thanks.